All right, this morning I sent you another email with some additional DOM examples on it, so I don't want to spend much time on this. I'm going to go through it. What I'm thinking, I'm going to send an email to my counterpart Evan over in St. Louis. But what I'm thinking of doing is giving you, when you take your written test on Tuesday, it's not going to be very long. And what I mean is I'm thinking of just having you do some DOM manipulation, but I'll give you like a beginning file to work with. And I'll ask you to do some manipulation. All right? What's that? No, I'm sorry. It's a hands-on test, not a written one. If I said written, I apologize. No, a hands-on test on Tuesday. And it's supposed to be on chapters 6 and 7, but I don't want this to be a big, intense test. All right. So ideally, we'll do that. We'll be able to go over it fairly quickly then on Wednesday. Then we're going to go into the jQuery part of the class. If you wanted me to give you jQuery in one sentence, we're going to replace that $sign that we've been using for that get element by ID. We're going to do some replacement of that because jQuery has its own syntax for using something that they call document.ready. All right, we're going to do that, and you're going to write less code and actually have more power behind it. So the idea is Wednesday we'll go over chapters 8 and 9. Thursday we'll go over some examples of using jQuery. Friday again you'll have the written test. All right, and I'm not sure if we're going to do that or not because I'm not going to be here next Friday, so you know. I have to go to Parkway South High School for their hour of code, so maybe we'll switch that around and move that to Monday or something. So if you say, well, geez, I haven't missed it all, that'd be a great day to take off. Well, that's your call. I don't think you should ever take off, but I won't be here because it starts, I think, at 9 o'clock is my first session. And I know it takes at least 45 minutes to get out there. All right. So, like I said, there will be class, but I guarantee it will be lab. So you probably have lab Thursday and Friday, which means we would take the written test the following Monday. All right. And somewhere in there will be a hands-on test after that, and then we will be going over chapters 10, 11, and 12. Those are the last chapters you'll be responsible for in the book. All right. What I plan on doing on Monday, please come. All right. But what I plan on doing on Monday is I'm going to go over virtually all of the examples in chapters 6 and 7 for both the short exercises and the extra exercises. I'm not going to tape that because, again, we are assigning that stuff. But we'll go over it. That way, if you have questions, I think that should do nothing but get you even more ready to take a hands-on test on Tuesday. All right. So just so you know, the folder is just called DOM. And if I look through it, this is what's in it. And I'm not going to spend very much time on it. But I grabbed some documents that were from Mozilla's website that I thought were pretty good. Some of these you may have, one of them is the one that I already asked you to go over, which was that manipulating documents. They also have one called Introduction to the DOM, and they have one with 8 examples in it called Examples of Web and Web Development. I grabbed those examples, and they're in here. So virtually everything that's in those documents is in there. All right? And also, I know we looked at this a little bit, but this was that shopping list that is on at the end of that. What I did was I went back to that document itself, and they put the JavaScript right in there. But I put comments. I used a lot of their comments that were in the document. So it's about 100 lines. I don't know what that is. So it's about 100 lines long now. All right. But everything is commented out. The idea, what you should understand if you take a look at this, if you look up on the screen here, please. Using this thing called Query Selector is actually recommended today over using Get element by ID. Query selector finds just the first one. If I want to find all of them, I do a query selector all. So query selector is in many ways designed to take the place of get element by ID. There's nothing wrong with get element by ID, but supposedly query selector is faster. So if you're working with a web page where speed is at a premium, you'd probably want to use that. Query selector all, which is not shown in here, that's designed to replace get elements by class name, get elements by tag name. All right, so it gets every one of the elements. So in other words, if I put an all on this, this would get all ULs, this would get all inputs, that would get all buttons. All right. So when you look in here, and quite often what I liked about this example, and I don't know if you looked at it or not, but what I liked about this example, that's it's very minimal, the work they did in here as far as CSS. They put it right in there, you know, basically with an internal style sheet. But what I want you to realize is this right here. You say, well, it's nothing. No, it's the UL, it's the unordered list where you add all those grocery items. So what they're doing right there is they're creating something that's empty, and then they're using the JavaScript to fill it up. All right? So as an example, I'm not going to do this, at least I don't think I am, but let's suppose that what happened was I asked you to do something where you did some extra work with that BMI thing that we wrote before. All right? And let's say that I asked you to enter in a bunch of heights and weights. And then you figured out the BMIs. Well, I could say if your BMI is, for example, let's say that it's 40, which means it's not very healthy. All right? Well, if that's the case, you probably wouldn't want a high-impact aerobics program to go into. See what I'm saying? You'd probably want something that was easier, you know, based on your weight. If you were underweight, you might want something different. Or we might, you know, a gym might recommend supplements or something to you. And that's kind of the idea here. So as you can see, what happens in this particular example, because again, I tried to put in comments. Well, this should make sense right here. This right here is literally creating a variable, as it says, that's going to hold an unordered list. That's going to hold input elements. That's going to hold button elements. Fine. All right. Hopefully by now you got a little flavor of this when we went over a couple examples. But this button dot on click thing says when you click the button, this is what we want to have happen. So, you know, you may or may not have even run this, but if you look at it, it's not a great program in that there's the stuff, but if I don't put anything in, it just adds an empty element. Really, they should have checked to make sure there was something in there. It wouldn't have been hard to do. JavaScript has got what's called a trim function. So if I put in there space, 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 eggs, space. If I run the trim function on there, what trim does is it gets rid of any spaces at the beginning, and it gets rid of any spaces at the end. On the other hand, if I put in there space, space, tomato, space, juice, space, 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 let's say, and I run trim, it'll remove all of these, and it'll remove all those, but it does not remove this one. Does that make sense? All right, yes.
So does it understand it's between words, or is it just like a single space?
It doesn't matter. Even if we had 10 spaces, then it wouldn't remove them because it is between two words. So it's just for leading and trailing. All right, that's it. Now, just so you know, trim is a combination of L trim, which removes everything from the left, all leading spaces, and R trim, all right, which removes the spaces from the right. Okay? So, like I said, we could have checked and we could have run the trim function on it first. So if I just put a couple spaces in there, and if I ran trim first, it would remove them. Then I could check and say, hey, if the entry was empty, don't put it in. I mean, you don't typically write a grocery list where you put down nothing. Okay? And in this case, we could even also go through here, say everyone that was empty, just delete it, type of an idea. All right, so what I'm saying is, in this example, they didn't do a really good job of validating, all right, and making this word be something a lot more useful than it could have been. All right. Now, this is a grocery list. A lot of times what you'll see done with the DOM is, are things like this, okay, where you are building something just like this. You're building something, and you're able to add to it and remove from it. All right. So that's one of the things that's in there. Again, all the different things that are in those handouts are in there. They had a couple of images, okay? And like I said, those documents are in there. There's kind of a cool one in here. That's my opinion. You may or may not agree, but where is it? It's called Completed Resize Example. All right? And the idea, it's not Bootstrap, but notice if I resize the screen, it resizes what I'm working with accordingly. So it shows you how you can mimic some of the stuff that you could also do with Bootstrap, but you can do it through using JavaScript. All right, there's a couple really decent exercises in my humble opinion. All right, so what I want to show you, I can run off hard copies if anybody wants one, and if you don't, not a problem either. But where is it? I think it's in here. Yep. So this is what I ended up with yesterday. All right. I used the same thing when we had that Packer backer thing. All right. I used the same CSS and just made some changes. Okay. Is this what I expected yours to look like? Something like that. All right. But what's in here, and this is what I wanted to show you. This thing has been semi-validated, but it's validated using only HTML5 stuff. There's other stuff that I could have added in here. I thought that was plenty. Now, a couple things just so you know. Some of the stuff in here, in fact, basically, social security number, first name, last name, address, city, state, zip, cell phone, email, desired shift, contact via, password, confirm password, and birth date. So everything up till here, I made required. I didn't say you had to do that, but I made it required. And then I did that by simply adding the word required in there. That was it. I figured asking you your favorite color shouldn't be something that's required. The only reason I put it in there was if you brought up the color tool, that's what it does. All right. The personal website, again, some people have personal websites, some people don't. It's interesting. I've been conversing with this guy electronically that he does a lot of YouTube videos, and they're a lot higher level than the stuff that I do. In fact, I might take a class with him. It's pretty high up there. And I asked him to look through my stuff and give me suggestions. And I always put this in there. All criticism is constructive. He said, I like what you've done. He said, you've got some really good material. But he said, I would recommend that what you do is when people come out to your YouTube page, you have a website out there because your stuff is too fragmented. It's all over the place. And you have hyperlinks to your different pages and stuff. All right. I may end up doing that. I don't know. And the credit card number doesn't work. And the reason that it doesn't work, just so you know, notice what it says down here. Automatic credit card filling is disabled because the form does not use a secure connection. What that means is that's the difference between using an HTTP and an HTTPS. All right? But I just wanted to show you the stuff that I put in here in order to try to get this to work. All right? So I'm just going to right mouse click and do a view page source and start bringing it up. All right? So I set max lengths for some of the fields. Did I expect you to do that? I'm showing you the things that can be done using just HTML. All right? They don't have a min length, but they have a max length. They also have a range, just in case you didn't know that. There is a range control. Why is that important? Well, I set the social security number up not only so that it's 11 max, but that there's 11 characters in it. I expected you to put the dashes in there. All right, so that's the way that was set up. First name, I would probably set a range of maybe 2 characters to 50 characters. 50 is pretty extreme. All right, that'd be a really, really, really long first name. Same with last name. But again, some people in other countries have longer names. All right, so that was first name and last name. Again, with address and city, city 75 is probably too big. And it might be too big for address as well. I didn't know. All right, but those are just arbitrary numbers I came up with. Zip code, you could have 12345 or 12345-6789. All right, that's where I got the 10 from. Cell phone, I set it up so it would be number dash number dash number. That's where I got the 12 from. Email, you'd be surprised at some people's email addresses, how long they can be. All right, that's why I made that a little bit longer. And password, I would probably have put a range in there that would have said 10 to 25 characters. Hopefully one of the things that you realize when you start going through this stuff, there's a lot of work that you have to do to verify things on a form. All right, even something like a password. If I say the password has to be 10 to 25 characters, it has to have, a combination of letters and numbers, at least one capital letter, at least one number, at least one special symbol. That's enough coding that you have to do just to verify that. All right, and you'll notice I made password 25. I didn't make anything for confirm password. Why? Because all I want to check with that is, does that one equal the other one? That's all. All right. Hopefully all that made sense. But I pretty much set these up in just about the same kind of way. And again, a few things I want to go over on this because I want you to understand this. All right. The first one there says form method equal get. Again, get implies that you are, all the information is going to appear up here. Okay? Now, you could say, well, what about passwords? Yeah, it probably should have been a post, but I made it a get. Notice the action. I'm telling it not to do anything. All right? Normally, this would be a file like, I would say something in here like process.php or process.aspx or process.jsp or something like that, where it would call a server file. Okay? All right. Then for each one of these, I set up a label, and then I made them an input. And again, what I want you to notice is what's in here. For every one of these, I put a type for the inputs, I put a name, and I put an ID. And for virtually, not all, but virtually every case, till I get to the radio buttons and the checkboxes, the name and the ID are the same. All right? Then I created a pattern in here. Hopefully you've got at least some kind of understanding of what that is. What that says is I want 3 numbers followed by a hyphen, followed by 2 numbers, followed by a hyphen, followed by 4 numbers. Probably should remove the question marks from there. I think that says that that hyphen is optional. I didn't want it optional. I wanted you to put it in there. All right. It's always nice, and I think somebody in here asked me this. It might have even been one of the second-year students that said, is it possible for you to write a form and put placeholders in for everything and not have any labels? The answer is yes, you can do that. All right. You don't typically see it like that just because remember that it's possible that the text in there, as soon as you put your mouse in it, can be empty. All right, you know, whatever the placeholder was, it's gray and it basically blanks out after you put your cursor in it. So you see again, first name, I didn't put any kind of pattern or any kind of checking, just 50 characters. So I made it a max length of 50. Do people understand that when you do this, that means that's the most characters I can type in there? That's not how big the field is. The field is as big as I make it when I create it or if I change it with CSS. All right, but that just says that's the maximum number of characters I can type in. So I did that for first name and last name, address, all right, city, the state. I just grabbed this from offline, you know, or I should say online. I went out to the internet, typed in select, which includes all 50 United States. And it also has the District of Columbia in there, so there's really 51. Then the zip code, you'll see there's another pattern in here that says 5 digits. And since that's in parentheses, it says optionally, you can also include a hyphen and 4 digits. Kind of what I showed you up here before. A phone number. All right, I just set it up 3 digits dash, 3 digits dash, 4 digits. We could put a lot of different things in here. We could have put it that you could put parentheses, 3 digits, parentheses, space, 3 digits dash, you know, etc. We could have probably had 3 to 5 permutations of that. I just kept it at 1. And notice I show them too. Again, I can't say this too often. It's not meant to be funny. There's no accounting for human ignorance. Some people, no matter how much you try to show them, they're still going to do it wrong. All right, that's human nature to do that. All right. Email, I actually went out there. Email is, believe it or not, it's a very hard thing to test for. All right. A simple test would say, okay, do I have an @ sign in there? Do I have a period that comes after the @ sign someplace, you know, after 1 or more characters? And do I have 2 or 3 characters that come after that period? That's the simplest kind you can do. I went online and a guy claims this is a pattern he created that he claims is the most comprehensive email validation pattern there is. So what does that mean? I don't know what half of it means. All right. Notice again the max length was set to 100. All right. This desired shift, what exactly happened there? So again, notice that when you work with radio buttons, when you work with radio buttons, they all have if they all have the same name like these all do with the name shift, they are now part of what's considered a radio button group. All right. I didn't set IDs, but if I did, they would all be different. So rather than saying name equals shift, ID equals shift, I would have said name equals shift, ID equal morning, name equals shift, ID equal afternoon, name equals shift, ID equal evening. All right. Then we've got a similar type of thing because by and large, handling checkboxes is very similar to the way you handle radio buttons. They're not identical, but they're very similar. All right. And hopefully you all realize this, that if I came into any one of these, wouldn't matter which one. Let's just say that I chose evening right here. If at the end or somewhere in here, I put in here the word checked, then by default that one would be checked when it starts. If I put checked into any one of these, it'll have a little checkbox in it, all right, for the checkbox. And again, notice for contact via, they all have the same name. So this will become a checkbox group. They all have the same name, but I did not give them IDs. Then radio buttons, another very similar thing. All right. Password, I didn't put anything on the password, just a max length. Again, I could have put a range in there or something. I chose not to do that. All right. Let's see. The confirm would just have to be the same as the regular password that you put in. All right. Now, there is a field that's new in HTML5. I believe it's new in HTML5. It's called a date time field. You may or may not have noticed it. You can set up what's called a picker, where when you click on it, it brings up the little calendar. All right. That's considered more in vogue today than making a user put something in. Because what that'll also do for you is it'll validate dates. You're not able to put in January 32nd. All right. The favorite color, all that did was it basically input type equal color. That set up the color picker. Personal website, that was so that you said input type equal URL, so you could see that. And the credit card was silly. I should have just left it out. All right. What you'll notice when you look in here, if you look at what's left, because this is the bottom of the file, and if you look at what's in blue, since we have in there type equals submit, that's what's going to fire when you click the submit button. All right. So when you click the submit button, what's it going to do? Well, any validation that has to be done, and then if I had a name there, it would call that file by default. All right, and the reset just sets everything back to their default values. So again, if I do come in here and I put a bunch of stuff in here, notice I'm going to put a bunch of bad stuff in here. All right, I'm going to leave that blank. And every time I do that and I leave things blank and I leave that to please select the state, for some reason that's not leaving, but hopefully you get the idea. Password, etc. So when I click submit, I should start getting error messages. The difference is, notice that I did put something in the Social Security field which says please match the requested format. All right, so if I leave it empty, I don't get the same message. Now I get please fill out this field. All right, and again, I've said this to you before, you can only do so much to try to help a person. That's why what you see a lot of times, every single time that you see a form out of the internet, the more drop downs, the more check boxes, and the more radio buttons you have, the less the chance is somebody's going to screw up what they're inputting. The more text boxes you have, the chances are better they're going to screw up something. That's just human nature. All right? So what I'm going to do on Monday with you, I'm done talking. What I'm going to do on Monday is I'm going to go over this and I'm going to show you how I validated it using JavaScript. It's not a small file. I'm not done yet. I still got 3 or 4 fields to go, and it's about 400 lines already. So you start to see the enormity, and I'm not even doing like super great validations on anything. All right, if I was, it'd probably be closer to 1,000 lines. All right, so again, on Monday, we'll go over that, and we'll look at a couple more examples, and we will do all the examples that we have time for from chapters 6 and 7 for both the short exercises and the extra exercises. Tuesday will be a hands-on test, all right, but it will not be designed to be that long. You can take as long as you need, but I'm going to set it up. I'm going to try to write it this weekend, but it'll definitely be written by Monday, all right, by the time we have class. So Tuesday will be that hands-on test. Wednesday we'll go over the hands-on test, and afterward we'll lecture on chapters 8 and 9, all right. Thursday, as I mentioned, We'll go through some jQuery examples, and the rest will be lab. Friday will be lab because, again, I won't be here. That'll get us through the rest of this week and all of next week. Any questions? All right, then what I'd like you to do, all right, would be to try to see if you could do some of the Chapter 6 and Chapter 7 short exercises and extra exercises. Yeah, we'll do them together on Monday, but I might grab one of those and just modify it. That might be part of your test. I don't know yet. All right? I haven't done the exercises, so I'm going to start working on them shortly. All right? So again, that's all that I have. I'm going to try to grade these tests first and give them back to you. I'm taking for granted that if you have not turned in the homework for chapters 1 to 5, you're not turning it in, or 2 to 5. All right, that's a couple of people who, I don't know if you're in here or not in here. All right, so you get a 0 for that because you haven't turned in anything. But by Monday, I should have all that stuff graded. I'm pretty much up to date. Not entirely, because I haven't graded the JavaScript stuff yet. But I'll try to do that this weekend. All right, that's all I've got.